When you can't see the road ahead, do you feel lost and alone? Do you wish you had a group of companions willing to wander with you? When I read that quote this morning, it made me think back to the very first episode of the show. I told you that we were going to be part of a community that we've all been seeking. And I told you that the objective of this podcast was to share my own personal experience within the world of all-around growth. And personal experience is what we are going to talk about today, my friends. This is episode number 105 of the All-Around Growth podcast. Welcome. This is a show where we focus on building the lives of our dreams. My name is Rob Kaiser and I am your host. Today is Wednesday, February 24th, 2021. And the title of today's show is The Gift of the Dark Woods. Now, if we rewind back to that very first episode that I recorded months ago, I told you also that you would find a strong and supporting network and that we were the community that we've been seeking. I also said that you don't have to go it alone. And I encouraged us to grow together. And that's exactly what we're doing. And some of you guys that listen have actually reached out to me to show me support. And that's awesome. You know, I wanted to do this, and I want to do this podcast because, as I've said before, I want to give back what was so freely given to me in the form of a podcast. Somebody that made me feel as though I wasn't alone. And hopefully these words resonate with you and you know that you aren't either. Like I said, I had a seizure in the latter half of last week. I'm very grateful. My tongue is almost recovered. I'm almost 100%. Almost. And I did an episode on recovery yesterday, and I got some feedback, all right. I don't feel quite at liberty to specifically say who said what and when and where, but if you're listening to this, you know who you are. And I'm going to quote some of what you shared with me yesterday. And in that podcast yesterday, I mentioned that I didn't know what I was doing with this podcast. And the answer that I was given back was that I know exactly what I'm doing with this podcast. And that's creating. I was told that this podcast doesn't have to serve a purpose other than creation and being honest with myself. I was also told that the truth will set us free, but first, it will hurt like hell. And sometimes it does. And lately it has been. Now, in that podcast yesterday, I also mentioned that I felt like I was failing to effectively plan my own life. I felt like I wasn't following through with my goals and objectives. But I quickly corrected myself and said that was actually what I was doing right now, and that I was scared. That I was scared that I might actually get the life that I wished for. How fucked up is that, right? But fear, man, fear is a big driver. Fear and pain, the two biggest drivers of what we do, and more often than not, more specifically, what we don't do. I mentioned that I was scared my dreams might actually come true. But when I said that I had no idea what I was doing in this life, again, I was corrected. And the response that I got was, sure you do. You're experiencing it. Sometimes we don't need a higher goal or purpose. You are not utility. You are not a stat sheet. The ancient desert mothers and fathers talk about a, quote, plan of life, close quote. Rules and regulations they observe, whether they feel like it or not, help bring order and life and purpose to their lives. There's also the dark night of the soul, the gift of the dark woods, as Reverend Eric Elms calls it. And this individual said, it sounds like that's where I was at. It sounds like some pain is holding me. That I was maybe confused about embracing who I was. And I think that he was right. I think that as I work through whatever it is that I'm trying to work through here in this show with you, it's bringing up some pain and making me confront the confusion that's always been there. But I've tabled it. I've not addressed it. This individual also said something to me that was very important to me. He said that he was hearing me loud and clear, and that he was here with me on this journey, no matter what. Friends, you need people like that in your life. You need people like that in your life. And if you don't have some, find some. And until you do, I pray that this podcast may serve as a voice from the person in your life that you don't have, and can serve as an example of the voice to be for others. Like that individual told me, I will subsequently tell you, I am here with you. Now together, with this mindset of all-around growth, we will learn how to continue moving towards brighter opportunities. But in the meantime, we need to think about what is preventing us from moving towards those opportunities. How appropriate, I'm at a stop sign so I can read this quote verbatim. When you think about what's preventing you from opportunities, think about this. Quote, "The comfort of familiarity may be keeping you from new and brighter opportunities." I read that in The Rudder of the Day by Dan Miller, and I've talked about that and linked to it in the past, and I've linked to it again in the show notes today. When you click the link to that book, and even if you don't, you would read, be very careful about how you start your morning. You are planting the seeds for what the day will hold. If you get up late, grab a cup of bad coffee and a Twinkie, rush to work fuming at the idiots in traffic, and drop down exhausted at your desk at 8:10, you have set the tone for your day. Everything will seem like pressure, and your best efforts will be greatly diluted. So, start your day with positivity. Whether you read The Rudder of the Day by Dan Miller, or you write, or you spend some time journaling in the Best Self Journal, like I do. Start your day with positivity. Maybe even consider listening to this podcast in the mornings. Start your day with positivity. I hope that this podcast brings some positivity in your life. And if there's some specific positivity that you need to hear about, please reach out to me. I would be happy to include your feedback in a future episode. allaroundgrowth@gmail.com, or better yet, jump on Telegram. We've got a chat room there. Small, vibrant, awesome. The best of the best, the cream of the crop reside there. And I don't say that because it's me. The people who have been behind this show from the very beginning hang out in that room, contribute to the show. Join us. Be a part of it there. t.me/allaroundgrowth. I want to see you there. Now, furthermore, in The Rudder of the Day, we also read that change is frightening, and that the sameness and the predictability of what we have may be more comfortable than the uncertainty of change. We also read that the comfort of at least knowing what is coming each day appears to be more attractive than the uncertainty of initiating change. Now, maybe you guys are like me and you've experienced some times in your life with friends, family, or coworkers who are resistant to change, that don't like change. God, I know that all too well. However, I'm blessed in the fact that for the bulk of my adult life, with the exception of the past few years, I would say, all I've known is change. But I've settled into a routine here. I've settled into some comfort. Dare I say, the comfort of familiarity. It keeps coming up, that phrase, over and over and over again. No wonder. But when we read that the comfort of at least knowing what is coming each day appears to be more attractive than the uncertainty of initiating change, I want to dive into what initiate means. We must initiate that change. We must be the change we wish to see in the world. Now, the definition of initiate is to cause or facilitate the beginning or set going, to initiate a program of reform, or enzymes that initiate fermentation, for example. That's the definition of a transitive verb from the Webster's Dictionary. Dan also wrote that the first step in creating positive change is to identify what you want. And he wrote a few questions to close out that reading of the day and the rudder of the day. And I'm going to repeat those questions to you as I conclude this podcast today. So when you think about what it is that you want, and when you're trying to identify what you want, ask yourself a few questions. What would your ideal job be? What kind of people would you be working with? What skills would you be using? How would you make a difference in the world? Now, fortunately, you are not trapped in your job or life. You can choose to walk into a new freedom, yet freedom comes only to those who are willing to surrender the security of imprisonment. And he ended the rudder of the day with one final quote, which I will share with you now. You can't sail to new lands unless you're willing to lose sight of the shore. Well, my friends, I hope that this show was of value to you. I did not think yesterday's show was of value, but apparently it was. Apparently it resonated with a few people, and you guys have reached out to me, and I appreciate you. I really do. If you think that the show was of value, again, I'd like to make one simple request. I'd like to ask that you share the podcast with a friend, a family member, a loved one, your spouse, your child, anybody who you think may benefit from the words I've had to offer today, or any day for that matter. If you go to the show notes in your podcast player, you'll see links to everything I referenced, links to. And there's also a link to all the episodes, as well as the link to the Telegram group. The Telegram group is where some of the magic happens and where I get a lot of ideas for the show. So come on and check it out. t.me/allaroundgrowth on your internet browser, or if you've got the Telegram Messenger app on your phone, just search for the group All Around Growth. If you want to drop me an email, feel free to do that too, allaroundgrowth@gmail.com. I look forward to hearing from you. For those of you who sent feedback and continue to do so, thank you very much. This show wouldn't be what it is without you. This is Rob Kaiser, and thank you.